Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to 90 Day Fiancé latest news. Jasmine Pineda, a reality TV star most known for her role on 90 Day Fiancé, was taken to the hospital after a terrible automobile accident on November 27th. The morning of November 27th was much like any other. Jasmine Pineda, a mother and reality TV star, got ready to go shopping. Traffic in Panama City was normal, and people had no idea what was going to happen. It was a normal morning as her car pulled out of the driveway, but within minutes, everything fell apart. The brakes stopped working, the driver lost control, and the car hit another one. The sound of the hit broke the street's quiet. Witnesses said the impact was violent. Metal bent, glass broke, and smoke ascended from the hood. Jasmine's arm was broken and her forehead was bleeding, so it was clear that she was hurt. People who were passing by ran to help, yelling for an ambulance. Jasmine was awake, but in shock. Her breathing was shallow, and her face was pale. The ambulance got there quickly, and the paramedics stabilized her injuries before taking her to the hospital. The street was silent in shock, and the wreckage was a disturbing reminder of how fragile life is. Inside the hospital, turmoil turned into urgency. Doctors looked at Jasmine, put her fractured arm in a cast, and treated the cut on her forehead. A few minutes later, Matt Branasterianu showed up with tears on his face. Seeing Jasmine in the hospital bed made him cry. He kept asking about her condition, his voice shaking. Doctors told him, "Her injuries are serious but not life-threatening. She will get better in a few days." But it didn't help Matt feel better. His tears showed how heavy love, fear, and helplessness were. Instagram and Twitter shared the news right away. Fans filled the comments with prayers and sympathies. "Stay strong, Jasmine. We love you. Matt, you're not alone. We're with you." Sending healing energy to Jasmine and her family. Hashtags like #PrayForJasmine were popular, showing how far her tale spread. Jasmine was more than just a TV star to her fans. She was a symbol of strength and weakness. Matt's emotional breakdown was really deep. Friends said they saw him walking up and down the halls of the hospital, his hands shaking and his voice breaking. He had always been there for Jasmine, but now he felt like he couldn't do anything. He cried not only because Jasmine was hurt, but also because the family they had formed was so fragile. Family members took care of their infant girl Matilda at home. Matt couldn't stand the notion of having to explain the accident to her one day. Fans came together outside the hospital. Some others held candles, while others carried signs with Jasmine's name on them. Their presence showed the connection between the star and the audience, which was based on shared vulnerability. The accident made everyone sad for Jasmine. Thousands of others who had watched her story on TV shared her agony. Doctors kept doing their jobs with care. Their comments gave hope. She will get better in a few days. But getting better wasn't simply about getting better physically. The accident reminded Jasmine of how fragile fame is, how short life is, and how strong you have to be to deal with public scrutiny, even while you're in agony. Jasmine's family dealt with the emotional fallout behind closed doors. Matt's tears, Matilda's innocence, and Jasmine's strength all came together in a story of survival. The accident wasn't just a news story, it was a real-life event. For the family, it meant restless nights, murmured prayers, and always being worried. People talked about the accident outside of the hospital. News sources looked at how it affected Jasmine's career, her family, and the bigger picture of reality TV. It was a reminder to audiences that reality stars may also have bad things happen to them. Their lives, which are shown on TV for fun, are just like ours in that they are full of weaknesses. The world watched as Jasmine lay in a hospital bed with her forehead bandaged and her arms still. Each update added to the story as a whole. The disaster wasn't just an incident. It was a narrative of strength, love, and the thin border between normal life and terrible tragedy. Witnesses remembered the accident very clearly. One person said they heard the brakes squealing, and another said they saw Jasmine's car crash. Their voices were heavy with trauma, and their memories were filled with the image of Jasmine's weak state. The mood inside the hospital was strained but caring. Nurses rushed quickly, doctors murmured softly, and Matt's cries filled the hallways. The hum of machines, the shuffle of feet, and the soft reassurances all made a picture of strength. Matilda didn't know about the catastrophe at home. Her laughter, her purity, and her small hands yearning for comfort were all in stark contrast to the heaviness of her parents' grief. For Matt, Matilda was both a source of strength and a reminder of his duties. Her innocence made the situation seem even more fragile. The media looked at the event from several angles, putting it in the context of the larger story of reality TV culture. Headlines focused on Jasmine's injuries, Matt's emotions, and the prayers of the fans. The coverage showed how private pain and public spectacle can come together, which is a reminder of how complicated fame can be. People all throughout the world were sad with the fans. Their prayers, comments, and vigils all showed that they were all grieving together. Jasmine's accident became a narrative that people from all around the world could relate to. The accident showed how fragile life is. It made Jasmine remember how weak she was. It reminded fans that even celebs are people. For Matt, it was a reminder that love can last even when things go wrong. The emotional cost was huge. Matt's tears, Jasmine's strength, and Matilda's innocence all came together in a story of survival. The accident wasn't only physical, it was also emotional, cultural, and symbolic. People in the hospital hallway acted out their anguish. Matt's pacing, fans whispering, and physicians' assurances all happened in real time. The hallway showed how private pain and public gaze might meet. The fans' support showed how strong a community can be. Their prayers, vigils, and comments gave them all a lot of strength. This support was both soothing and too much for Jasmine and Matt. In the end, the accident turned into a story of strength. Jasmine's injuries, Matt's emotions, and Matilda's innocence all showed how weak and strong human life can be. The collision on November 27th was more than just a news story. It was a real-life event, a cultural moment, and a story of strength. Jasmine Pineda's broken arm and forehead wound showed how weak she was, while Matt's tears showed how strong love can be. Fans' prayers made them all stronger, and Matilda's innocence reminded everyone how fragile life is. The hospital hallways were quite quiet, except for the sound of nurses' footsteps shuffling and the low buzz of machinery, keeping an eye on Jasmine Pineda's vital signs. For Matt Branisterianu, every second seemed like an eternity. He sat slumped in a chair outside her room, his fists tightly clutched and his eyes red from crying for hours. The accident had shocked him to his core, taking away the calmness he had always attempted to keep. He wasn't simply a fiancé at that time. He was a man who was scared of losing the woman who had become the most important person in his life. In the room, Jasmine was lying down with her arms still and a bandage on her forehead. The medics told Matt that her injuries were not life-threatening, but that did not help the tempest inside him. He thought about the accident over and over, picturing the screeching brakes, the tremendous crash, and the image of her weak body being placed onto a stretcher. Every recollection was like a knife, piercing deeper into his already frail state. Social media spread the news of the accident like wildfire. Fans who had watched Jasmine's story on 90 Day Fiancé sent her a lot of messages of support on Instagram. One post said, "Stay strong, Jasmine." "We're praying for you," said one person. "Matt, don't lose hope," said another. "She's a fighter." There was a lot of love, but Matt felt alone. The words were reassuring, but they couldn't take the place of someone holding his hand and whispering that everything will be fine. There was a small group of people outside the hospital. Fans lit candles, held up signs with Jasmine's name on them, and prayed quietly into the night. Their vigil was modest but strong, showing how close the celebrity and the audience are. Jasmine's agony had become a communal grief that went beyond the lines of fame and obscurity. People who gathered outside saw her as more than just a reality TV star. They saw her as a person who was hurting and needed help. The doctors moved with quiet precision, and their voices stayed steady while they talked about Jasmine's condition. Her arm is broken, but it will get better. The cut on her forehead is deep, but they are taking care of it. She will get better. Their words gave him hope, but his heart was still heavy. He recognized that getting better wasn't only about his body. The accident had left wounds that no bandage could cover up, scars of fear, weakness, and the knowledge that life may alter at any moment. Their infant girl Matilda, who was at home, had no idea what had happened. Her laughing filled the home, and her small hands reached for toys. She was still innocent, even if her parents were sad. Matilda was both a source of strength and a reminder of duty for Matt. He gazed at her and saw the future they had always wanted, but suddenly it felt weak. How could he tell her one day that her mother had been in such danger? How could he protect her from the harsh truths of life? Media sources broke down the accident and put it in the larger context of reality TV culture. The headlines focused on Jasmine's injuries, Matt's emotions, and the prayers of the fans. The coverage showed how private pain and public spectacle can come together, which is a reminder of how complicated fame can be. The accident was more than simply a personal tragedy for Jasmine. It was a cultural event that was seen by millions of people through the media. People who saw what happened kept talking about it. One person talked about how the brakes screeched, and another talked about how Jasmine's automobile crashed. Their voices were heavy with trauma, and their memories were filled with the image of Jasmine's weak state. These stories became part of the larger story, changing how people remembered and understood the disaster. The mood in the hospital was strained but caring. Nurses rushed quickly, doctors murmured softly, and Matt's cries filled the hallways. The equipment humming, the footsteps shuffling, and the quiet words of comfort all presented a picture of strength. But below it all, there was a sense of panic, a realization that even the strongest bodies and minds could be broken in an instant. People all throughout the world were sad. Their prayers, comments, and vigils all showed that they were all grieving together. People from all across the world, and from all walks of life, heard about Jasmine's accident. It reminded us that tragedy doesn't care who you are, that everyone is vulnerable, and that in times of disaster, compassion can bring people together. The accident showed how fragile life is. It made Jasmine remember how weak she was. It reminded fans that even celebs are people. For Matt, it was a reminder that love can last even when things go wrong. The emotional cost was huge. Matt's tears, Jasmine's strength, and Matilda's innocence all came together in a story of survival. The accident wasn't only physical. It was also emotional, cultural, and symbolic. People in the hospital hallway acted out their anguish. Matt's pacing, fans whispering, and physicians' assurances all happened in real time. The hallway was a place where private pain and public gaze met. Every moment was seen, thought about, and shared, converting private pain into a public story. The fans' support showed how strong a community can be. Their prayers, vigils, and comments gave them all a lot of strength. This support was both soothing and too much for Jasmine and Matt. It reminded them that they weren't alone, but it also reminded them that people were always watching them. Fame had given them a platform, but it had also taken away the privacy that most people don't think about. In the end, the accident was a narrative of strength. Jasmine's injuries, Matt's emotions, and Matilda's innocence all showed how weak and strong human life can be. The story wasn't only about staying alive, it was also about love's strength, the power of community, and the idea that hope may come out of misery. The hospital felt like a second home to Matt as the days went by. He stayed at Jasmine's side for hours, holding her hand and murmuring words of comfort. He watched her sleep, her face pallid but calm, and felt a rush of thankfulness that she was still alive. Every breath she drew was a gift, and every moment reminded her how fragile life is. The media kept writing on the subject, looking at how it affected Jasmine's career, her family, and the bigger picture of reality TV. Some people wondered if the accident would impact how fans saw her, while others said it would only make her relationship with them stronger. Matt didn't think these talks were important. The only thing that mattered was Jasmine getting better, being healthy, and being in his life. Fans kept watch outside the hospital, their candles flashing in the dark. Matt found comfort in their presence because it reminded him that he wasn't alone. But it also made me think about how heavy fame is, how people are always watching you, and how you can't grieve in privacy. Fame had given Jasmine a voice, but it had also made her anguish worse. Jasmine slowly started to feel better while she was in the hospital. Her arm was still stuck and her forehead was wrapped, but she was strong. She smiled at Matt, murmured thank you, and clutched his hand tightly. Matt thought these times were priceless because they showed him that love could last even when things went wrong. The accident turned into a cultural event, a story of strength, love, and being open to others. It reminded me that life is fragile, that bad things can happen at any time, and that kindness can bring people together in times of trouble. For Jasmine, it was a reminder of how strong she is. For Matt, it was a reminder that love lasts. It was a reminder to viewers that even celebs are people. The noises of grief and strength kept echoing in the hospital hallway. Matt's pacing, the whispers of fans, and the doctor's promises all happened in real time. The hallway showed how private suffering and public attention can come together. It was a reminder that fame makes both good and bad things bigger. The story of the accident kept changing as the days went by. Fans told stories about their own problems and drew strength from Jasmine's strength. News sites looked at how the disaster affected culture and put it in the larger context of reality TV. The accident was more than just a headline for Jasmine and Matt. It was a real-life story of survival and a reminder of how fragile life is. The collision on November 27th was more than just a news story. It was a real-life event, a cultural moment, and a story of strength. Jasmine Pineda's broken arm and forehead wound showed how weak she was, while Matt's tears showed how strong love can be. Fans' prayers made them all stronger, and Matilda's innocence reminded everyone how fragile life is. The hospital was still a place where people spoke softly and were strong, and the halls echoed with the sound of footsteps and the soft buzz of equipment. The sterile walls had become a temporary shelter for Jasmine Pineda, a place where her body could heal and her spirit could gain strength. Her broken arm was carefully put in a cast, and her forehead wound was wrapped. Even though the pain didn't go away, she showed how strong she was by holding Matt's hand as he sat next to her. Matt Branisterianu had been with her for long periods of time. His eyes showed how tired he was from not sleeping, and his posture was slumped from being so tired, but he was always there. He mumbled words of consolation, occasionally saying them again to calm both himself and Jasmine. "You're safe now. You'll get through this." Each statement was like a lifeline, keeping him connected to hope even when he was at his lowest. The vigil went on outside the hospital. Fans held candles, and the flames flickered in the night air. There were posters with Jasmine's name and pictures attached on the walls, and big letters spelled out messages of love. There weren't a lot of people, but they were all there for a reason, to show their support. They mumbled their prayers, cried quietly, and their presence became a sign of shared compassion. There were still a lot of updates on social media. People shared and analyzed every picture of Jasmine in the hospital bed, every word from Matt, and every comfort from the doctors. Hashtags like #PrayForJasmine and #StayStrongJasmine kept trending and bringing people together from all over the world. For a lot of people, Jasmine's tragedy wasn't just a sad event. It was a reminder of how fragile life is and a moment that went beyond entertainment to touch something very personal. Inside the hospital, there was a mix of worry and caring. The nurses moved quickly and skillfully, changing 4 lines, checking monitors, and speaking softly. The doctors spoke in calm tones and talked about Jasmine's development. They stressed that her injuries were serious but not life-threatening. Their words of comfort meant a lot, but Matt's heart was still heavy. He knew that mending wasn't only about broken bones and cuts. It was also about the mental scars that stayed long after the physical ones had healed. The accident changed Jasmine's life. She had lived most of her life in the public eye, with her problems and relationships shown to millions of people. But at that moment, when all the glitz and glamour were gone, she was just a person, weak, sensitive, and dearly loved. People didn't rate her strength or write about it in the news. They saw it in the quiet way she dealt with sorrow and held on to optimism. Matilda's innocence stayed safe at home. Her laughing filled the halls, her little hands grabbed for toys, and her eyes glittered with interest. She didn't get how sad her father was, or how much her mother was missed. Matilda was both a comfort and a reminder of his duties for Matt. He looked at her and saw the future they had dreamed of, but suddenly it seemed fragile. He realized that his job was not only to help Jasmine, but also to protect Matilda from the harsh facts of life until she was old enough to understand. The media kept looking at the accident, putting it in the context of the larger story of reality TV culture. The headlines focused on Jasmine's injuries, Matt's emotions, and the prayers of the fans. Commentators talked about how it would affect her career, how it would affect her emotionally, and how private agony and public spectacle may come together. Jasmine and Matt thought these talks were far away and not very important. They weren't worried about how people saw them. They were worried about staying alive. They weren't worried about the news. They were worried about getting better. Eyewitnesses told reporters what they saw, their voices heavy with trauma. One person talked about the screeching brakes, another about the severe crash, and another about seeing Jasmine being put on a stretcher. These stories formed part of the story that everyone told about the event, changing how people remembered and thought about it. Those who saw it in person will never forget it, and it served as a reminder of how rapidly life can change. People showed their sadness and strength in the hospital hallway. Matt's pacing, the whispers of fans, and the doctor's promises all happened in real time. The hallway showed how private pain and public gaze may come together. It was a reminder that fame makes both happy and sad moments bigger. People watched, spoke about, and shared every moment, turning private pain into public stories. But even in the middle of the pandemonium, there were times of serene beauty. Jasmine's weak grin when Matt murmured to her, the light grasp of her hand, and Matilda's sweet laughter when she came to visit for a short time all reminded them that love could last even in the face of disaster. Cameras and social media didn't catch these moments. They were private, personal, and very human. The fans' support showed how strong a community can be. Their prayers, vigils, and comments gave them all a lot of strength. This support was both soothing and too much for Jasmine and Matt. It reminded them that they weren't alone, but it also reminded them that people were always watching them. Fame had given them a stage, but it had also taken away the privacy that most people take for granted. Jasmine's strength started to come back as the days went by. Her arm was still stuck and her forehead was wrapped, but she was strong. She thanked Matt for being there and talked to him quietly, noting the love that was all around her. Matt couldn't put a price on these words. They reminded him that their love was strong enough to last through even the hardest times. The accident became a cultural event, a story of strength, love, and being open. It reminded me that life is fragile, that bad things can happen at any time, and that kindness can bring people together in times of trouble. For Jasmine, it was a reminder of how strong she is. For Matt, it was a reminder that love lasts. For supporters, it was a reminder that even famous people are people. The cries of sadness and strength kept ringing through the hospital. Matt's pacing, the spectators' whispering, and the doctor's assurances all happened in real time. The hallway showed how private grief and public gaze may meet, reminding us that fame makes both happiness and sadness bigger. As the story of the tragedy changed, people told their own experiences of their own challenges, using Jasmine's strength as an example. News sites looked at how the disaster affected culture and put it in the larger context of reality TV. The accident was more than just a headline for Jasmine and Matt. It was a real-life story of survival and a reminder of how fragile life is. The collision on November 27th was more than just a news story. It was a real-life event, a cultural moment, and a story of strength. Jasmine Pineda's broken arm and forehead wound showed how weak she was, while Matt's tears showed how strong love can be. Fans' prayers made them all stronger, and Matilda's innocence reminded everyone how fragile life is. During the quiet times at the hospital, Jasmine thought about how she had gotten there. She thought about the years she had spent dealing with the difficulties of love and fame, being a mother, and being in the public eye. She thought about the accident, how she lost control all of a sudden, the crash, and the anguish that came after. She also thought of the love that was all around her. Matt's constant presence, Matilda's innocence, and the kindness of her followers. The accident was a reminder to Matt of how fragile life is, a lesson in being vulnerable, and a test of how long he could last. He had been through tears, sleepless nights, and a lot of worry, but he stayed with Jasmine, holding her hand and offering words of consolation. He didn't show his love by big gestures or loud statements. Instead, it was in the quiet strength of being there for her and always being there for her, even when things were at their worst. The accident reminded followers that even stars are human, that everyone has weaknesses, and that compassion can bring people together in times of trouble. Their prayers, vigils, and comments showed that they were all strong, sad, and connected in a way that went beyond nations and cultures. The accident turned into a story of strength, love, and being weak. It reminded me that life is fragile, that tragedy may happen at any time, and that kindness can bring people together in times of trouble. For Jasmine, it was a reminder of how strong she is. For Matt, it was a reminder that love lasts. For fans, it was a reminder that stars are just like us. As the days went by and Jasmine's strength started to come back, the hospital stayed a place of quiet voices and quiet strength. The sound of footsteps, and the soft buzz of equipment filled the hallways. The vigil outside went on, social media updates kept coming, and Jasmine's devotion never wavered. The disaster on November 27th was more than just a headline. It was a real event, a cultural moment, and a story of strength. This gossip is over. If you liked the video, then give your opinion in the comment box and stay with us by subscribing the channel. Thank you.